Well, what up, everybody? How you doing? It's your boy Jedi Granville, and welcome to Jedi Granville Productions. And hey, I'm fresh back from my San Diego trip, and what I can tell you from the get-go is, if you've never been to California, I would suggest going as soon as you can and possible because me, my boy, Sci-Fi Century, Kaiju Goodness Kevin Lambert. We all had a blast meeting the film fanatic and meeting the one and truly only duo of all time, or one of the many duos all time. You know, Fat Samurai Guy and Miss Lady, Miss Miss Lady. No, how she said? Lady Fat Blood. That's how I'm trying to say it. Yes, right. But all in all, though, we had a blast going there, and like I say, I got emotional for it and seeing the ocean for the first time. But hey, all of that considered, that's for another whatever. This is not this. What this is about. This particular podcast. This particular podcast is dealing with something that I feel is not often talked about, or at least in reference to, as far as saying discussed, because this particular film that we're going to discuss is a film that I feel that kind of doesn't get the warranty or the discussion that it deserves. But then again, I guess that's just how things are. Some films live in infamy, some are just skate through life and build up their own momentum. But the film we're going to be discussing, and you already saw the this thumbnail for it, and that is Explorers. This is a nice, beautiful gem of a film that came out in 1985. That was directed by Joe Dante, who was pretty much famous for directing Gremlins, or two of the Gremlins films. I mean, one was a classic, the other one was, you pick a pick. And he's done various other films like Inner Space, The Howling, and like I say, and this one was one of his, not so much dream project, but a particular one that had something to it. But unfortunately, it didn't go out the way it should have. But we'll get into that discussion now. The film, like I said, came out in '85, and it marks this month being 40 years old. So you can only discuss the fact that this film is basically a classic. It's one of those '80s classics, and that's what it is. And I went to see this film on opening day back in July of '85. It was on the 12th, but this film is very, very, it's something about it that really touches the inner soul of my being, which is what the film is kind of drawing out to anyone who watches this and who actually feels this embodiment of what the film is about. I mean, the film basically deals with how you're a dreamer. I don't know how anybody else feels about this. I'm one of those just individuals who has such a thick, erroneous, just abundant imagination, and usually imagination leads to dreams, it leads to all these things. And this film kind of hints on that a little bit, which is kind of something that I feel doesn't get the attention of too many people nowadays, especially in Hollywood. There's a lot of dreamers who have ideas but never get focused on, because Hollywood is nothing more than a whore wanting to make money. And then sadly, as I said again, this film here had its little drawbacks, but as I said, we'll get into that anyway. But this film came out, like I say, '85, and it was released by Paramount Pictures, and it was written by a screen director named Eric Luke, who had this on the back burner of his mind for a couple of years, not that much. But when you watch the film, you'll discover that the people, the main characters that are played by Ethan Hawke, which was, believe it or not, this is his very first film for being on screen, playing Ben. and he plays the so-called the more abundant dreamer, the one who really thinks, the one who really just thinks outside the box and sees things that he wishes could be or whatever. And beside him is River Phoenix, who plays Wolfgang, and rest in peace, River. I mean, we all know what happened to him sometime later. Unfortunately, he passed away. And it's hey, he could have had, like kind of like Brandon Lee. He could have been something more, but what can we say? Life caught up with him and everything. But he plays the person who creates this particular, something that when I say creates, he's given something and it manifests into something even more. And beside them is um, Darren, played by Jason Preston. If I'm saying his name right, make sure I am saying his name right. It's Preston. It is Preston. Yes, Preston. Jason Preston. um, he is just what you call one of those individuals who's, you know, like anybody, especially if you're growing up in the 80s, you deal with life or basically any time, century, the world, you grow up with difficulties and everything, but somehow he is pulled into this phenomena that all three of them share, and somehow they come to realize that they all share same kind of analytic kind of feeling of being drawn into something that's far more incredible than any human being might imagine. So what does this all tie to? What is this all about? What does this bring to the table in terms of what this movie is about? Well, all I know is when I saw the trailer for this film, something about it just hooked me. It's something that it's brought me into it. And I can tell you now that it was part of a trailer moment that involved this moment here. Get it up here. It's just something that you throw away and realize like it's involving aliens, but how these aliens interact with these kids who are about no more than 14, because when they started filming this was they was like 13, 14 years old, so they were kind of more than, but yeah, like I say, kind of close to the tweens to teenagers, so whatever. But just give a little background on this film. This film originally was something that was going to be done by um, Wolfgang Peterson. And if anyone knows who Wolfgang Peterson is, he's most notably known for doing Das Boot. He's done In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood. He's done Air Force One with Harrison Ford starring there. And if you know anything about this film, that if you look at it, it kind of reflects another film that came out 1 year prior to this one, which was The Never Ending Story. And if anyone remembers The Never Ending Story, then you remember how the film went into it just takes young individuals and put them in these fantastic notions. It's like, and hey, I mean, I just have to say it, never ending story. It's to say it, I mean, it's a fun film. But he was originally slated to direct this film. He was supposed to direct this film from jump. But I'm not gonna say but. I also say that certain hands got switched this, certain hands got switched that, and he wanted this film in Germany, which wouldn't have been no big deal. But certain studio heads think certain ways, and they don't want to be really do it for this or whatever. So anyway, it got some things got exchanged, and studio heads, whoever it was, because it's almost like Speed, how Speed originally was with Paramount, which was this production here, but then it got switched to Fox. Ironically, it was Fox that was going to do the film, but it got switched over to Paramount, and then it got switched over to someone else, which was Joe Dante. And from there on, well, what you see is what you become to get. And it's a rather amazing thing knowing that this film, you know, it has a really, really great premise of what it's showing about your youth, your innocence, and how it drives you to, something more. But as far as, like I say, production and everything, we'll discuss that a little bit. But let's get to the kind of the storyline, the meat and potatoes of the film, which is Explorers, and how this all comes into play. Now, let's just say that this film, and I kind of reflect on it with myself here, like the characters in the film, these three boys. I was just somebody who just nonchalantly, was such a like I say, I think outside of the box. I was such a daydreamer. I didn't care much about school. I didn't really care about what it was, but it seemed like there was something more phenomenal outside our own realm of reality. And when these three kids step into something like that, it becomes something that is a journey that goes beyond what you think it is. But what they find out with the conclusion of things, it doesn't warrant it where they think it should be. But the film starts with Ben, which was, like I was mentioned before, stars Ethan Hawke, and he is someone. He's kind of, in a way, he kind of reflects on who I, in a way, still am. He kind of Hawkins into thinking like, what is out there, or just say, what is more to what my certain surroundings is, and it's just amazing that I'm kind of glad that knowing that when I saw this film, I was at the right age watching this, because the guys who are in the film, are pretty much the same age, that kind of reflect of who I was. When I say was, kind of say at that age where I was so abundant with it. He's kind of have these dreams where he's flying over this circuit board, and he's kind of like, what's going on? So he has this one dream one night, and he wakes up, and before he wakes up, he sees some kind of like a circuit board that's just pops in his brain. He doesn't know why it's in his brain. So he calls up his friend Wolfgang, played by River Phoenix, and he asks him, could you check out this particular schematic and see what it does? And Wolfgang, being a genius who is raised by another genius, it's certain people in this movie that are not really stand out, but are there. James Cromwell played his father, which River Phoenix's character. So he's a genius. So he gets him to, make this, take the drawing and see if he can do something with it. So push come to shove, blah, blah, blah. It goes, and sometime later, he makes the schematic, he creates it. And he feels like, okay, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to really hawk into anything. So basically, whatever he's been given through Ben's dream, he taps on it, he does everything. All of a sudden, it starts programming itself on the computer that he has. And it's like, how's that possible? That's not possible, So with that, since it's able to do what it's doing, it turns out that what this is a schematic for a force field. And the force field, as it turns out, they get all three of them because Darren comes in, witnesses this, he doesn't realize if this is a, scheme or whatever. He doesn't know. But the force field that's created is a strong force field that is unpenetrable, it's airtight, is basically a perfect spear, and somehow this gives them the idea, or at least gives them the drive to say, if we can put something, if we can build something where we can put this into the spear, because it's so strong, it's impenetrable, and it can go through anything. There's one scene where it goes through the walls, it goes through, it's a small size, goes through the walls, goes through a refrigerator, goes to it's very, it's that. They say, well, let's see if we can make something that, just let's build a spaceship. Let's build something small, inefficient. It's not something that's, not going to be anything. And they create this particular craft here. It's based on a Turtle World is based on a fairgrounds Turtle World ride. And one of the things you realize is, got a little, what's up there, Mr. Kaiju Goodness? How you feeling today, brother? I hope you're doing all right. Yes, that's in, brother. It definitely is that, and that's one of the things why I wanted to discuss, because it is that kind of gem. It's a very, special. I feel like this. The film has a special place in my heart. But as I say, I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but I'll get to it. I'm just taking the synopsis of the film. They basically build this ship. Okay, it's a small. Yes, it's very much a hidden gem for sure. It's a very small, craft. It's based on this fairground ride. It's an old hulk of it. So they take their imagination, their, just this youth, and put something into this little ship. And yes, exactly, it is. It's yes, very much so his film debut. This is something that a lot of people don't know. It's funny how he was only 14 at the time when he did this. I think 14 or 13, but he came out the box running, and it's kind of funny, knowing I think about this, he had really no real acting, when I say child, he can act, but he didn't have no prior, affiliation with anything. So thankfully, this was his, go-to, and it got him ground running. And well, you see what he's done now. So, but no, getting back to the film the ride I'm talking about, it is used to house these three, and when the force field comes on, it houses it so it can fly, and to wherever it goes to, we don't know. So on their first outing, they pretty much destroy a drive-in. And anybody who knows what a drive-in is, I'm pretty sure that not a lot of people remember, especially unless you're in my age group, you don't know what the fuck a drive-in is. You've heard of it, but unless you actually been to one, you don't know what it is. But they destroyed the drive-in by accident. That's only because something in the computer is taking over that's making it malfunction, and it's doing some crazy stuff, I guess trying to get it to go wherever it wants to go. So anyway, while all this is happening, they kind of demolished the concession stand, a part of the drive-in. And they go up into the sky, and they move away from all this, and they run into a police helicopter, in the local town, and the two pilots in there are played by Dick Yorker. Is it Dick Yorker? No, Dick Miller. I'm sorry. Um, what was the name? Dick Miller. Yeah, Dick Miller. I'm sorry, Dick Miller. Dick Miller and what's this other guy's name? Marshall. Marshall Teller. Marshall Teller. Okay, whatever his name. Anyway, he plays Gordon, and Dick Miller plays Charlie. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm messing. Yeah. Yes, that's yes, and I gotta mention that too. He played in both Gremlins, so yeah, he's because like I told him, he's an alumni of Joe Dante, so it only makes sense. What's up there, Jake? How you feeling, brother? I won't do anything to make you blush, so don't worry. I won't make you red or anything like that, so don't worry about that. No, but no. Getting back to what the story is, they run to this the police helicopter, and like I say, Dick Miller and Marchette Taylor are in this helicopter, and they're wondering, what should we do? Okay, kind of get into the mix of this. They run into this helicopter, and the main person in there, which is Charlie, played by Dick Miller, he comes infatuated with the and like I say, bro, it's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke. Don't take it too seriously. I'm just messing with you. Um, but like I say, it's he comes infatuated with these things, with what this thing is and what it does and what everything. So the guys have the kids had their first outing, and it was a test run, but didn't go the way it should have. So, I mean, hey, that's what you do tests for. So sometime later, the kids have another, well, I should say Ben has another dream, but it's shared with the other two occupants, Wolfgang and Darren. And you kind of think like, what's going on? Why should they be having the same dream as he? Turns out they're all connected with the same thought process that's being shared by who's ever up there, you know. And in the midst of this, Charlie, he goes on an investigation of trying to find out what this thing was and where can he find it, this particular UFO. And in the midst of discovering where it is, because he finds it, I mean, he eventually finds it, and everything. But he tells his partner, Gordon, that I've got this weird feelings. I've had these dreams before. I've had these dreams more recently. And as he says, the thing is, I haven't had these dreams since I was a kid. So you got to think, it's like that's making your head scratch. I'm like, what's going on here? That's it's like, have aliens like this, come in contact with someone like him or before? It's a lot to process, And I'm gonna get to something that people don't realize about this film, and it's a kind of sad anecdote, but I have to talk about it. So the kids, have another dream, and when they have this other dream, they see the complete schematic of the diagram that Ben had dreamt up before, and it has a missing piece that actually produces oxygen for any occupant that's in the sphere, because the sphere doesn't have no air. You can't breathe, and when they first went up, and they had to take some oxygen tanks to breathe and everything. Okay. This particular part of it is able to make them breathe air without having to, suffocate. So they realize, like, someone's trying to contact us. Someone is trying to tell us something. It's like, it's almost a, God's trying to tell you something, and you need to listen. Only this is more extraterrestrial than spiritual. Although, take it as you will. You could say it could be spiritual. You never know. I mean, there's a thin line between the spiritual and the divine. spiritual and extraterrestrial. So, but we won't touch on that because I know some people who watch this, they'll get like, what are you talking about? You can't put the spiritual with the, outer space stuff, and like, it's like, okay, chill with that. It's not no big deal. All right. I mean, if you're not a dreamer, if you're not a person who has a mind that stretches past all that, don't worry about it. So they decide that they're going to take another leap of faith, and they do. And in the midst of this, like I said before, the Charlie character discovers the spaceship. He finds Ben's jacket in there, and he goes to find out who this kid is and how's he able to do what he's doing. And when he discovers him, he runs away, and because Ben thinks he's not coming back. That's the other thing, because he writes to his parents and says, "I'm not coming back. I'm pretty much, whatever." So they take the ship, they fly off, and this time they not just leave the atmosphere. They go out into deep space. They go, and eventually the aliens that connect with them connect up, and they ain't just fly them into a certain, space and whatever. They've sent them like pretty much light speed, flash them to another galaxy almost, if you think about it. So they come in contact with these particular characters, which is Meek and Whack, which is it's kind of weird how you say that. Meek and Whack are these creatures that we've been contacting them through a special kind of device that projects, images and whatever into people's brains and whatnot. And I had to tell you, this is kind of funny. This movie came out in '85. And an other film that I know that had aliens project images into people's brains was in Man of Steel. And if anyone's seen Man of Steel, then you know what I'm talking about. There's a moment where I'm saying Jarrell. Zod. Why am I saying Jarrell? Jarrell is Kal-El's father. Sorry. I'm getting people. I know someone watched this like, man, you fucking up my DC shit. Don't fuck that up. So sorry. But no, getting back to that. That's the other film that I can think of that does that. And I'm wondering, could this have been an influence to who did Man of Steel? I don't know. The exact, Snyder get involved, or Christopher Nolan, or even David Gawler get influenced. I don't know. We don't know. So, and you got to remember, the '80s has a lot of influential moments that people reflect on that influence them to make certain films and what they do now. But these two characters are the ones who have been projecting these images to these kids, and they come across them. I mean, the kids come across them. They pick them up in this ship here, and not so much hijack, but bring them into side and share them. Come inside, and they, pretty much trying to figure out what's the mystery. Because it's a mystery. It's almost 2001, kind of a forbidden planet, almost whatever, Now, as I've mentioned before, we what am I doing? Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Still working out the kinks. But anyway, the funny thing about this is that as they're mingling with these kids, these aliens are mingling with the kids are mingling with the aliens. They discover certain things that they didn't realize when they come in contact. And Ben, being the one who's the biggest dreamer, comes to find out that these aliens, who we may think are thousands of years old or whatever, and it may be in terms of how you look at it in time, They are actual actually teenagers. They're children. They're no more older than they are. I mean, in terms of mentality, as these kids are, they're kids themselves. They basically, like so many teenagers do, and if you're a teenage, if you was a when I say when you was a teen, if you was ever a teenager, which I know you all were, like me, you did some dumb stuff. And teenagers, like all teenagers, do either very smart or very questionable things. Okay, so the groundbreaking thing about this was that they hijacked their dad's car, basically sports car, if you want to say it. And you can find out that when they steal it, they're not so much joyriding, they're trying to interact with other life forms and show who they are. And the reason why they never really, and they show a moment in the film where why they never really come down to earth. And it's kind of funny because the beginning of the movie, it shows Ben watching War of the Worlds, the 1953 version. Okay. Oh, is it 52? It could be 53. 53. I'm sorry. And they showed another projection of a film on the spaceship that they're in with the day this Earth stood still, some very other films, famous ones. They're showing how humans, and this is something me and another friend was talking about, how we're always projecting aliens or other life forms outside our own realm as the enemy. And true enough, like anything, there's bad and good in everything, no matter what you go to. Somehow, they just got in their heads that these two, they feel that if they come down to Earth, would they be dissected, examined, all these things, and they're afraid of that. And Ben tells me, like, that's just in the movies. That's just, it's like, I know you're a kid, but you're a dreamer and everything, but you should be smart enough to realize that there might be some truth to that, unfortunately. And him being the person that he is, he should realize that not everything is what it is, and knowing that if they did come down there, who's to say that some authorities wouldn't get involved? Because let's be honest, you have that good side of the so-called interaction with aliens, and then you have the bad side. And usually the bad side is where the aliens try to take over, Independence Day wise, or somewhere in Men in Black, or they try to do, or whatever. But there's the good side where it's like they just want to be friends, like E.T. or Starman, And this, it's sad that it is how they think that way, but at the same time, there is some truth, because let's be honest, we as human beings, some of us don't trust our own people on this planet, whether it be because of their skin color or of their sex, their gender, or what their thinking process is. It's we have these problems, and these are aliens, so their only thought process is like, I don't want to get dissected or anything like that. So going forward with the story, the father finds out about him, and he comes with his bigger ship, which is almost like a tow truck. And it's like, who the hell took my damn car? And well, like any father or mother, he is hella pissed at these two, because they're joyriding, but they're not joyriding just to joyride. They're joyriding to try to interact with other species. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out. And the father says to them, tells the kids, like, it's time for you to go. Get the hell out of my damn ship, And he does. He gets them out, throws them out, blah, 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 bye. So they go back to their planet. And unfortunately, the ship crashes because reasons. It has to be reasons because of that. So it crashes, and in the midst of that, and I should mention too, the ship is called Thunder Road. I forgot to mention that. It's based off of Bruce Springsteen's song, and well, I'll discuss about how that deals with why it's called Thunder Road, but it sinks, never to be salvaged again, and it's gone forever. So now, after this happens, while this happened, I should say, while this thing, I should mention that there's another character named Lori, played by the late Amanda Peterson, who was, as I said again, she passed away sometime later. She's someone that Ben has a total crush on, and like so many boys or even girls, they have some kind of crush on somebody that they're seeing, and they feel like, well, maybe they're out of my league, I'm out of their league, and everything, or they're out of their league, or whatever. What I'm saying. We all had that moment, how it means. But she sees this event when they crash, and she runs out there, and somehow she's also someone who's been touched by this kind of gift or visions or whatever. So it ain't just for the boys. Some girls get it too. Some boys are interacted by that also. So they're feeling like, okay, will we ever hear from these two aliens again? Will they ever send anything to them again, ever again? We don't know. So sometime later, they do get visions in their heads again, and they're able to shoot them these thoughts into their heads again, and it's just musical. I mean, it's magical, and Laura's able to join up with them too. So after that, the film comes to a kind of a bittersweet conclusion. I mean, it's not so sad. It's just more, how can I say, it's more kind of like, hey, just be a kid, learn to appreciate what you have, and know that you can still be a dreamer and you can make things happen, whatever. And to me, that's kind of the synopsis of this, the potency of this film. This film makes you realize, and for me, I don't know if anyone's watching, how they feel about it. I feel that it touches on the notion that, we shouldn't be afraid of how we project ourselves in terms of who we are. I mean, I know me, I'm kind of, I mean, I can be goofy because I can be, outlandish, probably because I'm a little older. But there was a moment where I used to be very shy, very closed, an introvert, but all I had was my imagination. All I had was my dreams. All I had was my, whatever. But I feel like, people looked at me and I live in an area where, not a lot of people, could care less about those kind of things. They think about things that are based in the so-called reality or what they feel about anything, and I know for me, it was never something that I feel that really was warranted to be discussed, because it's like, who am I? I mean, I'm just some common person that has no matter, no whatever. That's kind of the thing it was. And I accepted that. But I feel that when this film came out and I watched it, and I went to, like I said, I went to the theater. I took my nephew to go see it. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's not like I am, but it still holds true with me even now. And this film was something that made me realize, hey, you cannot let yourself be dethroned by someone telling you that, you're crazy, you're this, whatever. It's like, you have the right, you have the voice, you have a voice, you demand to be heard. You should be heard, no matter how maybe the insanity or whatever what it is. It's all about who you are, and you should accept who you are. We should accept who we choose to be. I mean, a lot of us choose to. I mean, I say this. I mean, I know this is gonna be controversial when I say this. I mean, for sure it will be to some people. I mean, you could choose to be straight. You could choose to be gay. You could choose to be trans. You could choose to like certain things. As far as films, you could choose to say what you like in politics. You could choose to see. It's that's your choice. That's your choice. No one should have the right to dictate to say who you should be or what you should not be. And I realize that's with me. I choose to be this outlandish, individual who just has this, incredible imagination of things and whatever I wasn't. And that's one thing about explorers, it really opened up a lot for me in terms of who Walter Ross is. I mean, even though this film was over 40 years old, it still resonates in me as a person because somehow I still feel that, that kind of joyous youth that's inside me that I love this kind of stuff, and I come up with ideas, and maybe that's the reason why I've kind of gravitated to people like I mentioned like Jake Hall or Kevin Lambert, Sci-Fi Century, DJ Neko, DJ Dubas, the Professor, Daniel Miller, Omni Blast, Michelle, Goji 851, Matt, Jacob, Big Bad Wolf, John, all these individuals here, I mean, I feel like that they're it's kind of like who I am. I'm a dreamer, they're dreamers too, they have aspirations, they have goals, they have things. I mean, it may not get, exactly where you want to, but at least you have that. You have those moments. You have those and those that strength to have that in your mentality, and that's how it should be. It should be like that. But it goes without saying that this is why so many things die in the world because people are afraid to just say, I just do that. That's take what is that's bothering our brains and make it come to life. But I guess that's probably why I could say me, I've achieved so much in such a much short amount of time, like going to G Fest, traveling to California, doing things, and stretching my mind because I was afraid, I mean, does that mean that I need to be with explorers? It just proves that you should not hinder on that thought process of allowing yourself to think like you can't if someone says you can't. Because the second you can't, the second you say that you can't, you'll never do it. You've been shut down. Period. I mean, there was a point in my life where I wanted to write a book, which I came close to doing. Unfortunately, he was at a point of jealousy or just someone telling me this, but they say that you would do this, and like, wow, and then if you're someone who allows your insecurities to kill that for you, it will happen. But fortunately for me, as I got older, I realized, what, look, do it, achieve your goal, achieve whatever, and like I said again, Explorers is one of those films that I feel that is does that, and I'm glad to say that I'm still here to talk about this film because it's more than just this random film that's thrown out there, and it's for anyone to watch. It's something much more to it. It's more metaphorical to a degree. You know, but with that being said, let me discuss the reason why this film, even though it's kind of a classic in its own right, this film when it came out, it did terribly box office wise. It didn't make the money that it deserved. I mean, this movie had a budget of 25 mil, which is small, which is which is pissant money compared to what some of these films cost now. You know, someone costs maybe close to 200 mil to 300 mil, and that's this movie had chicken feed money, but that's because it was that kind of film. That was kind of times. That was the times of the time. So the movie was based on a screenplay by Luke, like Eric Luke, as I mentioned, and the studio wanted to rush it into production, and they were on their way to making a pretty decent film. And oh yeah, here we go. I just mentioned you, Gojira. How you doing, brother? Hope you're doing all right today. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Hope you're doing okay too, bro. But yes, this film was rushed in production, and kind of like Ghostbusters. It was based on an original idea, just like this one was, and this is the kind of thing about movies or anything in particular that become so-called classics, but you realize they had production problems. And the production problem was that studio wanted to rush this into the summer of 85. And sadly, this is what this is what's so sad about this film. This film, if you watch it from A to Z, it's not a complete film. This film is completely not finished. It is so unfinished. Cool. That's what I'm talking about, brother. Make sure to take up the mantle to make sure everything's taken care of, brother. That's what I'm saying. But and complete whatever you're gonna do. But no, this film is 100% not a complete film. That's the sad part. Here's the sad part of it: why it is not complete. Believe it or not, this movie comes in at 100, and it comes in like an hour and 49 minutes long. Okay, but this film had about another hour and 15 minutes of footage that didn't get into the final mix of this film. Okay, basically they wanted to get this film into the summer of 85, kind of be in competition with like films like Rambo, First Blood 2, Back to the Future, and various other films that was coming out at that time. And the sad part about this film is that it was released at a time that is sadly, probably was the worst moment in film history. It came out during the time of Live Aid. And if anyone remembers Live Aid, I mean, I'm pretty sure some of my some of my fellow brothers and sisters here, whoever watched this, kind of remember what Live Aid was. It was a benefit to raise money for AIDS, which was very, you know, it's still it's a viable thing now, but I mean, back then it was coming out like a wildfire, and they were trying to raise money. Queen, Madonna, various other artists were performing for the event, and it came out the weekend, the same time this film came out, and I'm assuming that you mean I'm assuming you know about you talking about Live Aid, right? Gojira, I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. Yes, it came out around that time, and unfortunately, it killed this movie. It just robbed it of its nature, and yeah, that's what I figured that what you meant. Yeah, yeah. It robbed the film. It just devastated it, and I didn't know this. I didn't know. See, this is the thing about me. I don't know about box office numbers. I don't know about you know these various other things, how things work for as far as that. I just know when I went to go see the film, I enjoyed it, and surprisingly, I did see. Did I see Live Aid on? No, it was on MTV. I just heard about it, but I didn't. And I didn't have MTV at the time, so I wouldn't have seen it anyway. So it wouldn't make no difference. But anyone who's at home and didn't care to go see, any films, well, the audience that Explorers deserved lost to it. And it's just sad that it had that, because it has a great, potential. But unfortunately, the film like I said before, it wasn't even it wasn't even finished. It was partially finished. It was a rush job, and anyone who knows about rush jobs or anything, it's you see what's the potential there, but in the end, it's like not really. And if you see some of the deleted scenes, you realize that a lot of the film was, it's a lot more story to the film than it is. Like right here, this is just behind the scenes with Joe Tante with the character actors. They're just filming a certain scene that actually went on the cutting room floor, and it's amazing that this film did not do what it was supposed to do. It's kind of it's kind of heartbreaking in a way, because the potential of what this film could have been, should have been, but it didn't. And like I said, it's just sad, I mean. And I mean, it's good to know that you got VCRs, you got playbacks and everything, but the end result is the film has so many things that were taken out of the film that should have been there. Like Ben, he had a older brother, he had an older sibling, but that was actually, I mean, it's actually mentioned in the film. He actually says his brother went through his jerk phase, but you don't like to see the brother. But coincidentally, you actually do see the brother. You find out who the brother is. As I mentioned before, the drive-in sequence, there's a moment where this guy is talking to this girl, talking about a film that they're watching on the big screen, and saying that it's so fake, blah blah blah. That's actually the guy that's in that car talking to the girl. That's Ben's brother in the film in a deleted scene. But you would never know that unless someone told you that, and everything. And it's like I say again, it's just sad that these things come into play, and there's a lot of potential things. And the thing is, this film didn't really have a definite ending in terms of how it ended. There was some part of it saying that they was going to go to the aliens planet, the kids were, but that didn't resonate too well, and it didn't really make it into the final process. And like I said, it's so many things about this film that could have been warranted into the film then, but again, it's something about the dreamers aspect of this, which is kind of ironic, because this film deals with being a dreamer, being a outsider, someone who thinks outside the box and just whatever. It's funny how it could have been something more, but it is more to me, as I know about it. But for anyone else, if you're Hollywood, stooge, you're just thinking about the moolah that comes with it. Now, I should add on to this. If this film was to get a remake, knowing how Hollywood does and how they do, would I mind that if they was to do a remake of this film? I'm pretty sure everyone knows how I feel about remakes. You know how I feel about remakes. I mean, to me, I guess it don't really matter what the hell I say. I mean, it's people going to do it anyway. Well, I'll put it like this. I kind of mentioned this about Never Ending Story. I feel Never Ending Story could, and in a way, kind of deserves a remake. The reason I say, because the film that we got in '84, that's just part of the book. That's just like part of the story. It's in the book. So if they were to do a remake of it, it would definitely have to be a much grander and much longer picture, and unfortunately more darker. So if they were to entice and say, let's do a remake of this film, I'll just put it this way. And this is how I look at it. This is how I feel about it. If they were to do a remake of this film, I'm not going to say I'm going to hate on it. I'll just say that I just hope they do justice to the original script that Mr. Luke produced, that he wrote, because I feel like if there was a lot of substance that's in the story that should have been in the final draft, or final version that we see, then maybe. But then again, as I said before, you already know how I feel about. Most of y'all know how I feel about sequels or even remakes. So it's it's touch and go. It's touch and go with that. But just to add on to a little bit more substance to this film, the film was, like I say, had some great things. Even though it was rushed into the production, it was done all this. The production on this, as far as effects and everything, are tremendous, stupendous, however you want to say it. And one of the things about the makeup effects, which are the creature effects, they were done by Rob Bottin, who I'm pretty sure everyone knows. If you hear that name, Rob Bottin, like Rick Baker, he did the creature effects for this film. So did a good job of that. And the visual effects for this film were done by ILM, or Industrial Light and Magic. And this is just a behind the scenes moment where the cameraman, Patrick Sweeney, is doing a motion control. Is it motion control? Yeah, motion control shot of the Thunder Road. And he's just filming this, and that's just a behind the scenes bit of that there. But even though this film was rushed, it did have some good effects, and I'm glad that it did have the stamina that it did have as far as that goes. Also, some little anecdotes about this film. If anyone's watched this film, you'll notice that there is a little I say Easter egg in there. It's very easy to see. The kids go to Charles M. Jones junior high school. And what's up, my brother from another mother? Speaking of that, yes, you are definitely from another mother. Yes. What's up, brother? How you feeling today? Yes. We are part of the collective. I will say that. Now, like I say, Charles M. Jones, I'm pretty sure anyone would know who that is if you're a total geek like I am, and I am a geek like you wouldn't believe. That is the name of the famous animator of Looney Tunes fame. The Donald Duck. I mean, no, I'm sorry. Slap me hard if y'all see me. Donald is part of Walt Disney, whereas Daffy is part of Looney Tunes. My God, man. This is what happens when you get old. Anyway, but no, Charles M. Jones, or Chuck Jones is usually nicknamed. He's famous for doing all the animation for the Looney Tunes films from Warner Brothers. So that's a little side note in there, whatever, you see in there. And but before, like I said, I want to conclude, but I want to mention something before I finish off. Now, I mentioned how this movie deals with the dreamers, deals with all, but the thing about this is that no one is excluded from, in the film, especially the two characters, they're not excluded from everyday life. They're not excluded from bullying. They're not excluded from just daily teenage things. And like Jason Pressman's character, Darren, he has to deal with family abuse from his father. That's, it shows that knowing that kind of thing that makes you realize why you have these films like this. It's escapism from the reality that we're presented with, and and I think that's the reason why I love films like this and others, because it takes me from the sucky world that we live in and the reality we live in, and I think that's why I gravitated so much to this film anyway, because it lets you know that you don't have to be stuck in that purgatory of feeling like, hey, I have to stick with this mindset of what was presented to me. I mean, and like my family here who's watching, man, I appreciate y'all watching. You're not stuck with that stamina of just saying, I need to do this way, you know. And the guy and the kids in this film, they realize like, hey, just like the aliens, the teenage aliens, it's like, why do I have to be like this just to be suited for what has been presented to me? And I'm glad to know that this film still has the so-called, how can I say, stamina that it has even 40 years later. Now whether it goes on for another 40 years or whether they do a remake of this, whatever they do, or I put it like this, I'll even go further with that. Would they go so far as to do a definite presentation of this film by taking the footage that they shot that I mentioned and pretty much put it in the places where it's supposed to go and do it like that? Well, I'd be game for that, but then again, maybe it's not. Maybe it's for the best that they don't do that. Maybe we're not supposed to do that. So take it as is and go from there. So, but hey, que sera, sera. I'm here to talk. I was here to talk about this, and I'm so glad that I got a chance to do this because this film is true to my heart. It's something that it'll never burn out anytime soon because, like I say, 40 years later, I still love this film. It's a branch of it's a part of my childhood. It's part of my youth. It's a part of who I am as far as being a dreamer. And I'm not going to let that go. I mean, people can try to push some kind of narrative or, rhetoric on me or whatever, and they can try, they can do that. That's their choice. But I have the choice to choose not to accept that and choose to be who I am. And I'm going to continue on to be who I am. And I like you who watch, I hope you continue to do the same because that's what it's all about. It's all about the choices you choose to make to be who you are. That's what gives you character. And even though I'm a very weird character, I can say wholeheartedly that I'm glad to be Walter Ross. And I'm glad that I got to do this particular discussion on Explorers, total classic. And I thank you all who have watched this. And, hey, this is how things are. I mean, you watch things and do things, and hopefully that it burns into people's memory and just gives them a sense of, whatever. But also, I should say that later on today, I will be joining up with my good friend at Entertainment Headquarters, Kevin Lambert, where we're going to be discussing Jurassic World Rebirth. And we're going to be discussing this film kind of in detail, but kind of how we felt about the film because you'll have to watch it. But with that being said, that's about it for what I have. I don't have anything interesting else coming up. I got to start spinning some wheels and bringing some stuff out, which I got some, but I got to put it in a way where it's like it's the right time, and hopefully it's yeah. I mean, it's hopefully going to be good, Jake. Hopefully it will be, but yeah. But everyone, thank you for joining me. I thank you for listening in on this little, rant that I have, and how, like I say, how this film affects me so much, because it really does, and me, older gentleman, this movie still resonates with me to this day, and it's not going to change anytime soon. I'm just glad that I got a chance to discuss it, and I'm pretty sure someone else is going to discuss it too. But that's for them to do. That's for them to decide what they want to do. So, But with that being said, let me close out by saying, y'all take care, be patient, and always keep that film legacy alive. All right? Y'all take care now. Peace out.